And this episode is brought to you by Dye Real Estate and Land Company. They are the real estate agents based in Northwest Ohio that are the go-to company for people who enjoy the rural lifestyle and are looking to buy and sell some property. The whole team is amazing. I've used them in the past. I'm partial to Jaylene myself for obvious reasons, but they're all there for you whenever you need them. If you're in the market, just drop them a line at info@dyerealestate.com. That's info@dyerealestate.com. And don't forget to tell them, Support Your Local Podcast sent you.
I now declare the quick draw competition open.
Howdy, everyone. Pull up a chair, kick up your boots, and take a sip on a nice cold brew. It's Support Your Local Podcast, the show where we go over the 1995 Sam Raimi Western classic, The Quick and the Dead, one chapter at a time. I am your host, as always, Robert Smith, coming to you from beautiful Tombstone. Yes, that one. Today we will be going over Chapter 10, Ace versus Herod. But before I do, I hear some spurs clacking on the boardwalk outside. There's a tall, shadowy figure coming up to the Batwing doors. And I see that we have a returning guest, one that I'm very excited to see today. One Mr. Snake Eyes, Jef Wolber. Jeff, how are you doing today, sir?
Not too bad. How you doing?
Doing good, doing good. We are excited to have you back. Those who know that he was on a few chapters back, we did have what I have affectionately, hopefully affectionately, coined the Wolber Curse in regards to audio when we did those chapters. Jeff, I apologize. I did not pick just on you. I did also pick on your brother, our beloved Jef Wolber as well. So here we are to try to alleviate the curse and break it. I did bring some chicken bones with me. I did a bad juju dance. I did all the things I could do. Next time I'm going to bring a priest in. I don't even believe in Catholicism, but what the hell? Let's give it a try.
I don't know what it is. This stuff happens to the Wolvers, man. I swear. Stuff like this follows us. I don't know what it is.
It is crazy stuff. I mentioned with it being Jay, he's into the paranormal stuff. Check out his podcast, Cryptids of the Corn, if you haven't already. It's huge in Zimbabwe. So I kind of expect it when it regards to him, but when it bled over into Jeff, I mean, this just has to be something to do with your genealogy. I don't know if you guys built your family home on an Indian burial ground, what the deal was, but we're going to try to get out of it. So today is our redemption chapter. Hopefully we get a little bit better audio with Jeff, but looking forward to having you. I'm glad you're here today. Again,
Glad
today
to be
we're
back.
going to, I'm glad to have you, sir. Today, again, we are going to take a look at Chapter 10, Ace versus Herod. However, before we do that, as always, I do like to take a little bit of a deep dive, take a look at one of our cast and crew, one of our movers and shakers, if you will, in regards to their career, both leading up to this movie, but also what they've accomplished afterwards. And those that have been listening these previous chapters know I'm really excited to do this movie. I'm not doing a bunch of bit characters from the 60s like I did with Support Your Local Sheriff. Mr. Garner is the exception to that, of course, but really get to sink our teeth into some of these cast and crew. And today is definitely no exception. Today we are going to take a look at one Mr. Lance Henriksen. Yes, Juicy Jesus. Yes, that's what I was about to say. I'm keeping that in. I'm not even going to change it. Douchey Jesus himself, Ace Hanlon, in regards to this movie, in a segment that I like to call "Put My Damn Name on the Board."
Put my damn name up.
All right. And as we said, today we're going to take a look at one Mr. Lance Henriksen. Jeff, I know you were kind of excited to get a hold of him. We had talked about it a little bit offline when we were doing our previous chapter of, just this cast and crew in general of this movie, but this guy in particular. This guy is an icon. No doubt about it.
He's been in like so many. I'm just looking at so many different things.
Yeah, it is ridiculous. I do have a little bit of horror trivia at the end for all you fans. So keep track of some of these movies and some of the the classic icon horror monsters that may or may not have given Lance Henriksen an end. They may have unalived him, if you will, in the parlance of the kids today's. But Mr. Henriksen, obviously, he's actually a classically trained actor. He did graduate from the Actors Studio. Fun fact that I found when I was looking him up on Wikipedia and other research is he had a fairly troubled childhood. He kind of bounced in and out of foster homes as a kid, something that obviously I understand a little bit near and dear to my heart in regards to that. Did not graduate from school, actually did not learn how to properly read until he was 30 years old. And I found that interesting because, I mean, so much of obviously acting has to revolve around being able to read the scripts and be able to do things like that. That was actually what led him to teach himself how to read. So he got into the Actors Studio. He did some small productions as a production assistant and as kind of the person doing the wardrobes and the backgrounds, behind the scenes kind of guy. He got a bit part in one of the plays, and it led him to start leading to more and more acting. And he realized that if he was going to be that, he had to learn how to read. So he actually taught himself how to read at the age of 30. And I just found out that's a little ridiculous. Like, mad props to him at that age to be able to teach him something as literacy. But he did start out with a couple bit parts as far back as 1961, 1972, 1973, doing some uncredited work. It wasn't until Dog Day Afternoon in 1975 that he hits a movie that kind of lands on my radar. 1976, he was in Mansion of the Doomed. 1976, also, he was in Network. He was in The Next Man. But it wasn't until 1977 when he played the role of my beloved namesake Robert in the Close Encounters of the Third Kind. So obviously that's going to be probably his first big blockbuster movie that he would have been a part of. He was in 1978 Damien, The Omen 2. Speaking of our possessed and scary thrillers as regards to the Wolber Curse, we do have the second Damien. 1981, The Dark End of the Street. 1981 also, he is in Piranha 2, The Spawning. And this is significant because this is obviously done by one Mr. James Cameron, who will go on to much, much bigger, better things than Piranha 2. But keep that in mind when we get here a little bit closer. 1983, he's in Nightmares and The Right Stuff. And then in 1984, he reprises, or he doesn't reprise, he gets back into the good graces of, one Mr. James Cameron in a little movie that some of you may have heard. That movie would be called The Terminator. Obviously, the kickstart to Arnold Schwarzenegger's career as a big Hollywood blockbuster. But here's your fun fact trivia. Did you know that the role of the titular Terminator was originally going to go to one Mr. Douchey Jesus himself, Lance Henriksen?
Really? I did not know that.
Yes. Now, I had heard throughout the years, they always talked about there was a time and a place where O.J. Simpson was actually being considered as the Terminator.
I have heard that before.
But yes, in writing it, just the stoic nature and the way that he can play a robot, which obviously will come in handy here in a few other roles. Lance Henriksen was actually originally considered to play the titular role of the Terminator because that was back when the story led them to be more of a inconspicuous character. They weren't supposed to be these hulking, non-stoppable. Well, they're still supposed to be non-stoppable machines. Non-stoppable. English class. See, I need to learn how to read. Unstoppable wrecking machines as Terminators, but they were supposed to blend in with humanity. That's what made them so dangerous. So it wasn't until much later that we got these hulking brutes and O.J. Simpson and Arnold Schwarzenegger. But originally, it was supposed to go to kind of more of a common man, and I would venture to guess that Lance Henriksen definitely fits that bill. 1985, we have Jagged Edge. 1986, another big role for him. This would probably be his first kind of iconic character in regards to himself. So Terminator, he plays the detective. When you're looking for him, you know that's Lance Henriksen when you rewatch this. But everybody's going to know him that's seen another James Cameron classic named Aliens, playing the let's face it, the robot, the unstoppable killing machine, as it turns out, one Mr. Bishop. And so that's where he gets his first role kind of in a bigger horror film, playing a character that's, like I said, going to be a little bit more classic. We'll hear more about Bishop as we go through this, but also 1986 on Dangerous Ground. 1987, he plays Jesse Hooker in Near Dark. Great vampire flick. If you've never seen Near Dark, I do request that you go search it out on whether it's Amazon or Hulu or whoever may actually have the rights to that right now. But definitely a nice little twisted, dark horror classic in Near Dark. 1988, he does play the father character in Pumpkinhead. And will continue to play in those further sequels. Again, if you've never seen Pumpkinhead, go check that out. That's one of my cheesy cult classics that I have to watch almost every year. I try to find time to get into those.
No, I've definitely seen him in Aliens. I remember that one, but I've never seen any of the Pumpkinhead movies.
Oh, it's definitely worth a look. If you enjoy the very low budget 80s classics, this is the reason I discovered is this played almost consistently during the Halloween season on USA when I was growing up as a kid. So if it wasn't a very, very censored Friday the 13th, then it was Pumpkinhead. If it wasn't Pumpkinhead, it was one of the Puppet Master movies. But I would put it definitely hand in hand with kind of the budget and style of a Puppet Master movie, but definitely worth a watch. At least the first one. They do get progressively sillier, much like the Wishmaster movies. But I would definitely at least check out the first one of the Pumpkinheads. Then we have 1989. We have The Horror Show, and then I take a second to flip my page. 1990, The Last Samurai. 1991, The Pit and the Pendulum. 91, also Stone Cold. 1992, he reprises his role of Bishop in Alien 3. But also we discover during that movie, spoilers, that his visage is actually the direct representation of Michael Wayland, the creator of Wayland Otani, the company that sends Sigourney Weaver's crew off to find these aliens and becomes a very pivotal character in the history in the continuum of that franchise. 1992, we see Delta Heat. 93, Excessive Force. 93 as well, we have a cameo appearance on the Super Mario Brothers movie. And with a new Mario movie looming on the horizon, not to date this podcast, but unfortunately we do have the Chris Pratt Mario movie coming out fairly soon. I will always stay loyal to the 90s version with John Leguizamo as Luigi and Bob Hoskins as Mario. It's horrible. It is not a good movie.
Was it Dennis Hopper? Was King Koopa?
Dennis Hopper was in fact Bowser, King Koopa, yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I don't... that movie, along with Masters of the Universe, just goes to show if you're going to make a movie based on a ridiculously popular franchise, take the time to actually watch the damn source material.
Yeah. I remember being... I'm sorry. I remember being a kid, a child, with 93 when those came out, like watching those movies and like, this is wrong. You know what I mean? Like both of those movies. Yeah, it's like, this is not how it's supposed to be.
Yep. 93. I'm 11 years old. I am the poster child of what the He-Man kid generation was. And I distinctly remember Masters of the Universe was the first time, even at my ripe old age, that I discovered that a movie could be bad. I didn't understand that concept yet. You know, movies were these fantastical things. There's no such thing as a bad movie because it's an awesome thing. It's a movie,
right?
And seeing that and going, like, even in my kid mind, I'm cussing them out, going, "What did you do to my He-Man?" Dolph Lundgren's awesome in it. Don't get me wrong. Frank Langella's an awesome Skeletor, but
Right.
I didn't need them to attack New York. Sorry.
I think the movie for me that was like that was Mortal Kombat 2. That really did it for
so not
me.
the first one, but the second, and I agree that the second one is atrocious. Yes. Oh my goodness. I just, fortunately nowadays, I think the fan base or the kids that grew up on those things, they're the ones that are now old enough to make the movies. So things are getting a little bit better. They're staying really true to the source material. But my goodness, those early 90s were those were an adventure. Yeah. Thankfully, Marvel movies didn't really exist back then, because Lord knows what we would have ended up with. Oh, wait.
Yeah, right.
I do know. We would have had that Captain America movie that still exists. Oh, yeah. 93 as well. We have Hard Target. We have The Criminal Mind. 94, we have Color of Night. And if you're not familiar with Color of Night, that is the erotic thriller with Bruce Willis and Scott Bakula, where it answers the age-old question, in case you ever wondered, are Bruce Willis's testicles buoyant? We get to find out. And then it takes us to 95, where we're here at the Quick and the Dead with Sam Raimi, playing once again Ace Hanlon. We coined the term when your brother was on prior, that he just looks like a douchey Jesus, or juicy Decious, as I said earlier. Same thing. He, as the one the whore upstairs says, he is so hot. I mean, maybe he is juicy. We'll see. 95, we have Powder. We have the Nature of the Beast. 97, Gunfighter's Moon. Take a second to flip my page. 99, I did not know this. He is the voice of Kerchak in the Tarzan animated movie. The lead alpha gorilla of the pack that doesn't want Tarzan to be a part of things. That was actually voiced by one Mr. Lance Henriksen. Yes, very extensive voice work. And going through the things I had, that one was not on my radar. 2000, we get into Scream 3, where he plays the director and producer John Milton. And this is obviously very infamous of a role, because this was a Miramax film. And for those that don't know, Miramax was the company that was ran by he who shall not be named, but I'm going to name him so that I can connect the dots. One Mr. Harvey Weinstein, who has since obviously been kind of outed as a deplorable, like I will never justify anything this man ever did. He is the scum of the earth, horrible person, is rightfully serving time for what he did. But the fun thing about Scream 3 was Lance Henriksen is essentially playing this Hollywood producer who has a dark and sordid history of taking these young starlets and introducing them to the casting couch. And for those that know what that means, then you know what that means. And for those that don't, search casting couch on your internet browser, but make sure that you put incognito mode on first. And one of these starlets was the Sidney Prescott character's mom, who ends up birthing. I'm not going into the whole spoiler. We're not doing Scream 3. We're doing Quick and the Dead. But anyways, so here we are. We're in a Miramax movie with this character playing essentially Harvey Weinstein to Harvey Weinstein's face, because he's the producer of this movie. And it somehow got through and didn't like that. That's the level of ego that this guy had to have had, that either he didn't get that this was Wes Craven and them saying like, look, you're kind of this guy, or he just felt he was so above it. I don't know it, but it's just so fun to know that they were essentially rubbing this in his face to his face.
That's crazy.
2004, he comes back as Charles Bishop Wayland, again part of the Wayland-Utani group that's responsible for the entirety of the Alien franchise. In the crossover hit, they made about 9 of them. Alien versus Predator. So the prequel to the prequel to the prequel before we got Prometheus. So 2005, he plays the host of the party in the straight-to-video sequel Hellraiser Hellworld. And for those that don't know, that was the one where essentially they had created, in the movie, they had created a video game about Hellraiser. And it was a live-action role-playing game. And really, it's interesting because this existed in a movie prior to the now famous Friday the 13th series. That was a huge game and was essentially that, where you could go around and play in a Friday the 13th movie on a video game. There's now, speaking of Mr. Raimi, there's now an Evil Dead video game that does the same thing, where you can essentially play in these movies. Here, this was just a bit of the script for a Hellraiser movie. And so essentially he plays the host of a party. I think he may even be the creator of the game. But I know that all the people kind of go to his house and play the game, and then literally all hell breaks loose. It is a Hellraiser movie. And they get all Cenobited to death. Fun fact, that's one of the very first American roles for one Mr. Henry Cavill. Keep an eye out for him. Superman himself, The Witcher, kind of got one of his big breaks, as big as you can get being in the seventh, sequel direct-to-video of Hellraiser. But he is in there. I've seen him. And then we have 2006, Sasquatch Mountain, to harken back to your brother Jay. We'll have to see if he's watched that. 2006 as well, he is the voice of Brainiac and Superman, Brainiac Attacks. And then we have some direct-to TV films, sequels of Pumpkinhead, to kind of bring around the edge on that. Mr. Henriksen is still with us. He is 80 years old presently. I believe he has a birthday coming up here in May. So thankfully, he is one that is still with us. He is still working to this day. Most of the stuff from the 20-teens is a lot of direct-to-video work, a lot of voiceover work in video games. But he does have a few projects that are coming out here in the next couple years. So fun fact about Mr. Lance Henriksen. So I mentioned that he is obviously kind of a horror icon with some of the things that he has been a part of. But he is in a very, very select group, one that I believe only also encompasses one Mr. Bill Paxton, in that he has died from a Terminator, he has died from an alien, he has died from one of the Cenobites. He checks a lot of the boxes and has been killed by many of our favorite people in some of those movies. So a very, very select crew that he belongs to. But Jeff, I have rambled on enough about this, man. What is your favorite Lance Henriksen stuff? What's your go-tos when you think Lance Henriksen?
Well, just going through everything, I forget which alien movie it was, but I remember the alien bursting out of him, right? And it was all the white stuff.
Yes, that is.
Because he was a robot. He wasn't a person.
Yep, that's the end of Aliens, the second one. Yes. So you think that everything's fine and they're in the hangar bay, and then all of a sudden, yes,
like I remember that. Yeah, I just remember that as a kid because it's like it was so weird. Like, you know what I mean? And do they keep his head and it keeps talking? Is that one?
Yes, it is. Yes, he serves to be the navigator.
Yeah, so like I don't know, that's like burnt in my brain, and I'm like, yeah, I saw his picture and saw his face, like I knew him from something, and then when I saw Aliens, like that's immediately what I thought of when I think of him.
Which I guess that's a good point. Maybe I shouldn't count him on the pantheon of people that have died from this. Technically, the alien didn't kill him. He was a robot. And as you said, he kept on going.
I guess so.
I think I might have to retry. Though I think he did die in one of the later... I think he died in Alien versus Predator as the guy, as the Wayland guy. But I'll count it. Cool. That's the one. We're good?
Yeah, that's the biggest one I can think of. But it's like... He's just like... I feel like he's one of those guys where he's like has a small part in a whole bunch. You know what I mean? Like his face just keeps popping up, and it's just like where do I know him from? And then I keep seeing all these things that he's in. Like, well, yeah, no wonder I recognize his face.
Yeah, he's literally in everything that we've watched from the 80s and 90s.
Yeah. Like, who was he in the Terminator? I don't remember that character. I haven't seen that movie in a while.
Sure, he is. So the two characters that watch over Sarah Connor in the police station. There's the psychiatrist who ends up living and then comes back in T2, and then there's the detective. He's one of the detectives. He's the one that ends up getting shot in the hallway.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Like, I didn't even realize he was in that. But now that you mention it, I know what part you're talking about.
Which is sad because he technically is being shot by himself because, as we said, he was supposed to be the Terminator.
Yeah.
So you got to picture Arnie in the hallway getting shot by Lance Henriksen instead. All right, but we have rambled on, deservedly so, a little bit about one Mr. Lance Henriksen. Let's jump into the chapter where you get a nice little view of his acting bits. But this has been Put My Name on the Board.
Add my name to the list.
Attaboy!
All right, and we are back. Jeff, if you're ready, let us jump into Chapter 10, Ace versus Herod. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready. Let's do this.
Perfect. Or excuse me, should I call you Snake Eyes, sir? I don't mean to presume my knowledge of it. Mr. Snake Eyes, sir, would you like to jump into Chapter 10?
Yeah, let's get to it.
All right, we start our chapter with the now very familiar Silver Spurs walking in the street, and we know who this is, obviously. But just in case we were wondering, it does immediately cut to Gene Hackman's face. He asks who we will soon see as Ace Hanlon if the fight about Indian Wells really took place. And Ace, douchey Jesus himself, looks into a handheld mirror, and he's putting blackening on his mustache and beard. Just a nice little touch of showing what kind of ego this guy has. That even in the West, he has to keep up his appearances, and heaven forbid he have any gray in his beard. I for one have had gray in my beard since I was 12. I've had a beard since I was 12, so I can't sympathize. But he does say that in fact the fight at Indian Wells did happen. And when he's asked if he truly killed 4 men during it, Lance Henriksen says that he did, and that he did 2 of them with his left hand and 2 with his right hand, and that he is equally gifted with both hands. So nice little touch, being ambidextrous. I wonder if that'll come into play here shortly.
All right.
According to Mr. Herod, that would make him the fastest gun in the West, or the biggest liar. So apparently something foul is afoot of perhaps this story. And Ace is, of course, offended by this, and he says that it's a pity that Herod wasn't there to find out, but dun dun dun, we find out that Herod was in fact there. He was actually the one that killed those people, and he's glad that he gets a chance to face Ace over this bit of stolen valor. And this, of course, leaves Ace visibly shaken, and it gives us one of our great Sam Raimi zoom outs from his face all the way back to kind of getting drawn into the thing. And I have to wonder, Jeff, because we do see that Ace Hanlon is, in fact, somewhat handy with a gun. You know, we had the display a few chapters back of shooting the card out of the girl's hand, which, granted, Herod did say that maybe that trick went a little bit awry in Reno one time, but he does successfully perform it for us here a couple chapters back. He is knowledgeable in what he's doing, but if you're going to steal a I'm assuming somewhat legendary story, you know, this is obviously a story that's gotten out that people know about, but, you know, Herod knows about it for other reasons, but it's gotten out to the point that it got back to Herod that somebody else was claiming it. Wouldn't you do your homework in seeing who actually, you know, if you're going to create something that never happened, but if you're going to steal something that did, do your homework on how it actually happened.
Right? Like, I've always wondered that. Like, he's so cool and cocky about the story, but he's talking to the guy who was responsible for it, right?
Right.
Like why? Yeah, like you said, do your homework. Like, know who you're going up against, or just know where you're getting your sources from your story. Because, like, this guy's obviously bringing it up for some reason.
Right. And this is an avoidable thing. So like this gunfight, we're led to believe has happened multiple years in a row because they always say that Mr. Herod always wins it. So like if Ace is coming here to win the big prize and that's the draw for it, you would think if he knew that Herod was the guy that he'd maybe I'll sit this one out. You know, I'll be back on the next year when Herod's dead, you know.
Right.
And so fun fact, we don't get any warning with the clock on this time, and Ace Hanlon goes to draw, but he's quickly shot by Herod, and he shoots off his right thumb. And ow! First off, every time I see it, I kind of cringe because any type of like foot horror or eye horror or hand horror, like I always cringe a little bit, especially being a bowler. I value my thumb so much that anybody that loses that, I can't take that.
That's very important.
Very, very important. And so it leads me to wonder, so we learned earlier that, you know, you have to wait. Well, first off, let me start with my usual rant. So Pat Hingle tells us in the rules that we are to wait for the first chime, keyword, chime of the clock to draw. That's the signal for the contest to begin. Mm-hmm. Now, I have my own personal beef. For those of you that have been listening to our previous chapters, you know where I'm going with this. Please bear with me. I'm going to get back up on my soapbox for a minute. Every single contest that we've seen, everybody draws when the clock strikes the hour. Ka-kunk. You hear the hand move. Never once have they waited for the chime to draw and fire. Back off my soapbox. That said, he did not even wait for the clock to strike the hour on this one. He just drew as soon as he knew that he was essentially fucked by Herod. So is this a contest? Is Herod doling out justice at this point? What's kind of your stance on the scenario?
That's a good point. See, I don't know. Who drew first? Does Ace draw first or does Herod draw first?
Ace drew first and Herod blew him out.
So is that a Oh, man, that's a good question. Because, yeah, he didn't wait for the right, but he still drew faster than him and blew his thumb off before he could get a shot off.
Right. So by Herod,
I say it's a legit contest still.
You're keeping it legit? Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
I say that the rules are fast and loose anyways because nobody draws on the chime anyways. But, you know, hey. Yeah. So Herod then begins to light a cigar with his right hand, and he asked about Hanlon's left-handed draw, which we heard, you know, he had killed the guys with both different or with each hand. And he essentially beats him to the punch again and blasts a hole through his left hand, which, you know, when I said owie about the thumb being blown off, this hole in the hand, it makes you kind of cringe up in like an arthritic hand, just kind of seeing it.
Is it weird? I don't know. I cringe, but I love that camera angle and that shot of it.
Oh, absolutely. and it is. It's a predecessor of things to come. We're going to see a lot of things through these holes as the movie goes. Spoilers.
Yeah.
Sam Raimi has never met a puncture wound that he doesn't love to throw a camera through, you know? Still standing, but he's definitely moaning in pain, rightfully so. Hanlon is then made to dance as Herod pulls both his guns out and he begins shooting at the boots of Ace. And it's just a nice little touch. You know, we see it's a Western trope. So Western trope alert, whoop, 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 from season 1. You know, you see things like this in even in like Back to the Future 3 and Bugs Bunny cartoons with Yosemite Sam. You know, for some reason they always shot at the feet of these people and made them dance. And every time I see them now that I have a little bit of movie knowledge under my belt, I'm not just watching the Westerns with my dad as a kid. You know, now all I see is I always wonder why nobody ended up being like Spider from Goodfellas. You know, there's just so many bullets flying towards their feet that nobody ever gets their actual foot shot. And I now that being a Sam Raimi film, I was just kind of expecting, maybe a little bit of foot horror to go along with the hand horror. I don't know. Maybe I'm asking too much. But he does call Ace the scourge of the sagebrush and the terror of Tucson, which obviously that one hits near and dear to my heart. Tucson's just 45 minutes to an hour up the road. But apparently these are some of the nicknames that Ace has kind of collected along the way, and it makes me wonder, of these, is this stolen valor as well? Did any of these stories that earned him this reputation, were any of them actually true?
Right, or is he just a guy who heard these stories and just like I mean, there's no Facebook, there wasn't social media back then,
exactly,
right? So he
exactly.
just goes around telling people he did that stuff.
Yep. Who knows? He shot Jesse James. He was at the OK Corral with a here in beautiful Tombstone.
You can get on your phone and Google it real quick, right?
Yeah.
Like you just all right, sure.
I mean, as I say at the beginning of every episode, I'm right here in beautiful Tombstone. Yes, that one. I've yet to see a plaque or a recreation that had Ace Hanlon in it. If I did, I would giggle because the guy would look like a douchey Jesus. But, and the last one that he hits him with is just a bag of hot air, and then he shoots Ace right through the chest, which I found very poetic because obviously the lungs are the bags of hot air that we all contain. And I'm always going to be the one who kind of nitpicks this. And was this, and I mentioned this before, was this the formal contest they're supposed to have? Because they were scheduled to fight each other. So Herod wins by disqualification, technically. And the thing I wanted to bring up earlier was, per Herod's own rules, that the person would be branded a cheater and removed from the contest. By rights, we should see our CGI guy cocking his rifle back and forth, because we're to understand that's the guy that eliminates everybody from here. I want to see that guy show up again. And so Ace does one of the most exaggerated deaths that I can actually remember. He first falls forward, kind of taking a step forward and leaning his chest in, but then he flings himself backwards. And I found that interesting. Obviously the bullet would do a little bit of that, but the bullet's long through him by the time he flies backwards in a perfect back bump for my wrestling fans out there. I mean, he takes a good flat back bump. I'll give him that. And so Gene Hackman just stands there, and he's proud of his work. And in true heel fashion, he looks around at the crowd, and he notices that nobody is celebrating his win. And apparently, he wants the kid treatment. Everybody else was so congratulatory of the kid beating Gutzen and carrying him up on his shoulders and hurrah and hoomfing and hurrah and taking him to the bar. So apparently, he wanted a little bit of that love for himself. So he raises his arms to his side, and they slowly but surely catch on what it is that he's wanting. And we do get a nice, polite golf clap. Starts slowly and finally building up, and Hackman turns and begins to walk back to his house, arms over his head, and he's soaking in the victory lap. But I just thought it was a great heel touch of essentially forcing your minions to kind of celebrate you.
Oh yeah, it's great. And like you said, very few people can pull it off like the way Gene Hackman did it. It's just so great.
Yeah, it doesn't come across hammy as, this guy, if he wanted to, he could chew the scenery up. We've seen his Lex Luthor. But it's just
right, yeah.
You're looking I feel a little bit terrified not to clap at this guy just watching him through the screen. He just
right,
embodies this evil nastiness. I can't gush enough about that character. So Sharon Stone is visibly upset, and as she looks over to the fallen Ace, she sees the vultures, figuratively. I mean, I assume that the buzzards would probably be coming in relatively soon, but I would not have put it past Raimi to actually have vultures there already. One sitting on the fence post next to Ace Hanlon, a couple of them, you can see the shadows of them swirling over him. I would not have put that past Raimi to have done that. But we do have the human vultures picking at the clothes and items on Ace, and we see scars in there, and he's pulling the gun belt off of him. Eugene's picking his pockets, and he does find a necklace. There's another man pulling off his boots, and it has the Ace of Spades on them. So nice little custom work there. You know, live your brand. If you're gonna live and die by your brand, you know, walk around. I have an RTS bowling shirt on almost every day. I get it. You know, selfless, shameless promotion is nothing.
Nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, no. There's another man with a sombrero on, and his back is to the camera, and he doesn't appear to get anything except shoved by scars out of the way. So he pantomimes putting something in his vest pocket, but we don't see what it could have actually been. Like if you watch just that guy, he never actually grabs anything, but he does go through the motions of putting things into his pockets. It's a nice little catch if you're watching. We cut back to Sharon Stone being disgusted by this, and she storms out of the crowd. And this only takes a couple of seconds, but when we come back to Ace, there are now 5 people scattering away from his body, and he's now left there in only his white socks, his white union suit, and figurative bones being picked clean. So there's only a solitary Ace of Spades lying by his side. So nice little touch that, you know, these guys are such quick change artists that, you know, they can completely pick a body clean in mere seconds. But that unfortunately is where we do end our chapter with the lady seeing a glimpse of her fate, essentially, if she was to lose in this contest. And, you know, there's now one less potential suitor for her. She had her chance to jump on the Ace train, but, you know, she did deny him that. She did not succumb to his hotness, his juicy Desusness.
How could you resist?
He's so hot.
Yeah.
But that is where we leave off. Jeff, do you got any notes to close up with?
No, I just didn't know. I saw that ace there at the end. Was that supposed to be like an ace up his sleeve or something? Because it's by his arm. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because he's a cheater, and that's like.
He is. So he had his stacked deck earlier when we first get introduced to him. So apparently he puts an Ace of Spades in the deck every time he kills a person. And when he fans out this deck has probably 80 cards in it by now, but you see quite a few of the Ace of Spades. But, you know, if he's sitting there playing cards, I do not put it against him whatsoever to have a couple of those up his sleeve just in case. Or maybe it's just his calling. You know, he passes them out like business cards. I'm not sure. All right. Well, Jeff, let's play a little game, if you will. We last time when we were here, we got to learn a little bit about your history with the movie. I know that you had watched it quite a bit as a kid. We got your gunfighter name. You are in fact Mr. Snake Eyes. But a nice little one that we like to do for our returning champions. Jeff, let's play Fuck, Marry, Kill, a game that I'm sure you played in your early Ute days. But of our cast of characters, so anybody in this movie whatsoever, who would you fuck, who would you marry, and who would you kill, and why? And go.
Okay, I guess I'm going with Ellen for fuck, Sharon Stone.
I mean, okay.
She's pretty hot and the hot gunfighter chick, right?
Nothing wrong with that.
And then, honestly, looking at it and thinking about it, my marry and kill might be the same person. It might be Gene Hackman's Herod.
Okay.
Because, you know, he's running the town, right? That's who I want to marry in the town.
I mean, if you're going to sleep your way to the top, sleep to the top, you know?
Yeah. Like, he runs the town. I don't know. I also want to put Ace probably up there for kill. I don't know, like, douchey Jesus.
I like it.
Yeah,
I like it. I like it. I like it. Absolutely nothing wrong with those choices. So we have put the lady up for F, put Mr. Hackman up for Mary, and douchey Jesus himself up for the kill. Let's put those ones in the record books. All right. As we close up, Jeff, where can we find you, man? What have you been up to?
Not too much. Just working Associated Plastics in Ada, Ohio. We're doing
Shout
injection
out.
molding there.
Shout out to powerful
shout out
Ada,
to
Ohio.
Ada, Ohio. Also in Ada, Ohio, Norada Lanes. They're wrapping up their bowling seasons here soon for all their men and women's leagues out there. And what's up with me? I'm having another boy here soon in a little bit.
Congratulations, sir. We're super excited to hear that for you.
That'd be number 2 for us, for me and my wife. So shout out to my wife, Ellie.
And shout out to Ellie as well. She was sorry she couldn't be with us tonight. We're still trying to get her on one of these episodes. I'm going to pin her down once she has the baby and has all that free time.
All right, we'll get her.
All right, so folks, if you're from the Northwest Ohio area and you don't know about Norada Lanes, let me gush on them for a minute. That's my beloved home lanes that I came from after Southgate. But if you want just good old fashioned bowling, it's a little 8-laner house. They have still the original wood lanes. So if you want to learn how to bowl, learn on some wood. It's not synthetics.
And they just got the new Cruising USA game out there, so
I was not aware of that.
Yeah.
I just may book a flight. Mama, I may be coming home, and if you want to see me, I'll be over in Ada. But yeah, no, guys, definitely check out Norada Lanes. The Wolber family, I don't gush on them enough. They're awesome people. As we're recording this, we actually just finished our 5th annual Smith Family Bowling Scholarship Foundation fundraiser, the SFBSF. For those that hear the ads at the beginning of these episodes, it's obviously the scholarship foundation that I created in honor of my dad that awards youth bowlers scholarship money to go towards offsetting their future cost of education. We're very proud of what we do, and we absolutely 1,000% could not do what we do if it wasn't for Norada and the Wolber family being so generous and so kind and allowing us to do our fundraiser there every year and taking care of our people. But yeah, definitely, if you're in the area, stop into Norada, get some awesome food, check out the great bowling environment, but at the same time, just sit and chat with the Wolber family. You're going to fall in love with them just like I do. I drag them all the way out here to the west to bowl in nationals with them every year just so I can kind of see them. So definitely check them out. But Jef, we appreciate.
Thank you.
Oh no, man, that is not a paid promotion, folks. That is straight 1,000% from the heart. But Jef, I'm so glad that you came back again for this episode. Thank you for coming on. Hopefully we will have you back very, very soon for another episode. But until we do, folks, we're going to wrap it up. If you have not already, please check us out on social media. We are Support Your Local Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. You can find us any podcatcher that is out there. You can find us. Search for either Support Your Local Podcast or the Quick in the Pod, which is just this season that we're doing. If you have any questions, comments, feedback, concerns, anything like that, hit me up at SUP, SUPP, your local podcast at gmail.com, and rate and review us. It's absolutely free. It takes you about 5 seconds, but it does huge things for the podcast, getting us moved up in the rankings, gets these soothing, dulcet tones in as many ear holes as it possibly can. But I love you guys. I will see you now very, very soon for our next episode. Jef, take care of that baby. Send my love to the Wolbers. But as always, everybody, support your local podcast.